So, Michelle, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So, Michelle, I know that a lot of the work you do with women is around purpose, helping women find their purpose. And I would love to know a little bit about what was that journey like for you trying to find your own purpose and how did art fit in?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so short story is I had my bachelor's in child psychology. So I love kids and I worked with kids for a long time. And I actually had a really serious injury. I ruptured my Achilles when I was 28 years old. And suddenly I couldn't do any of the things that kind of helped my life feel good. And it showed me how not good my life was actually once I was stuck in a wheelchair or on crutches for a while. And that was the impetus for me to go back to school. I started to feel that desire, that call. And I looked up some different programs, and that's when I discovered art therapy. I never knew that that was a thing. And I was like, I like psychology, I like art. Ha ha. So I ended up moving from Minneapolis to Boulder, Colorado, and going to school and getting my master's in art therapy. So I was like, this is my calling, especially when I got into the school, because I've always been kind of lonely, empath, sensitive, feeling like nobody gets me. And when I got to the graduate program at Europa, I was like, these are my people. Like, oh my God, the ugly duckling to swan moment of and it was beautiful to feel like I belonged. And I just felt this sigh of relief. So I was pretty sure that my purpose was to be an art therapist, right? And then after 3 years of that really great learning experience, they kind of drop you back into the real world. And I couldn't get a job as an art therapist. In fact, I only had one interview, and it was for the place that I interned at. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get this job. And then they called me back one day, and I had been waiting for their call. So I was just getting out of the shower, and I answer the phone even though I'm naked. And he tells me that they're going with somebody else. So I'm like, okay. And hang up naked, sobbing, feeling like what I thought was supposed to happen and what my calling in life wasn't going through, what is wrong. So I actually babysat the summer after I graduated with my master's for $14 an hour or something. So you can imagine, I'm driving to work every morning to go babysit somebody's kids. And I was looking at the scenery going, what did I do wrong? How did I miss it? And how could I have all of this training, right, to actually be a counselor and have done all this work on myself and all this therapy and still feel so lost and so stuck? So that's pretty depressing. That was a low moment, let's say. And I also at some time I was like, Michelle, go to your art. That's what you learned in school. Go to your art for answers. So I went to the art store, I bought a big canvas, I brought it home, and I was like, okay, give me the answer, art. And I just started painting intuitively, whatever shows up. And what ended up emerging after a couple hours was a face. It was a woman. So I painted her in a little bit, and I'm not super great at painting people. So I sit back and I look at her and I'm like, okay, you're kind of ordinary. There's nothing special about you. Who are you and what are you here to tell me? And then I had one of the most powerful dreams of my life, the kind that you sit up out of bed, sweating and breathing hard, and you're like, oh my God. And it was about a tiger attacking me at this park where I grew up. And it was leaping and just about to devour me right when I bolted out of bed. And so that dream was lingering in my subconscious the next day when I woke up. And then when I looked at that boring lady on the canvas, I was like, what if she was a tiger woman? And that was an interesting idea. I was like, what if she isn't supposed to be boring? She's supposed to be this fusion of the fierceness and strength and beauty of the tiger. And that idea kind of scared me because, I was like, it's a nice canvas and I put a couple hours into it. If I put black all over her, I might ruin her. And that was the decision moment. Michelle, are you willing to go in the bold direction and see what happens? Or are you going to stay with this, okay, kind of ordinary looking woman? So eventually I took the leap and I changed her into a tiger woman. And it was in that moment that I realized art is always guiding you to where you're supposed to be. And it gives you the opportunity to practice becoming who you want to be. So that moment in the painting was the universe saying, Michelle, you're supposed to be a fucking tiger woman. And once I was brave enough to put her tiger stripes on her and like take her into this really exciting direction, I loved that painting when it was done. Then I also had that transform in my life. I stopped interviewing for jobs. I didn't get any more interviews. I stopped trying to get interviews for jobs and I started my own private practice. And that led me on the journey that I've been on now, which is to be an entrepreneur, to do art therapy differently than the traditional path. And I'm so happy. It's like I needed the strength of the tiger to tell me, like, you're not supposed to go the traditional way. So it's like I like to say art is my spiritual guru. It guided me at that crossroads in my life where I would have just kept trying to do the normal thing because that's the only template I had, right? Like you graduate, you interview, you get a job, people pay you, you know. But what I have now is so much better.